And here we go, calling the meeting to order, 6:33 p.m., 10/10/2023. This is the October ATC Board meeting. Kick things off, recap off-cycle board actions. We did decide to maintain access to all our infrastructure at a board level, just continuity reasons, since we've seen kind of what's happened at other cons where the board did not have that kind of access in an emergency. So that was decided to go ahead and be done. We did receive a subpoena at the detour level that was kicked up to me for action. It was not directed at us for any sort of legal action, but we did receive a subpoena, so I did have to provide the records requested. That's been handled. That's all taken care of. Everything is good on that front. Let's keep rolling right along and do coordinator reviews. Troy, this is your show at this point, so I'll let you kick it off. Take it away.
Um, sorry, was thinking. We're finishing up with the budgets, obviously with the presentation of the budget for board approval, hopefully this evening. We will then be moving into hotel block stuff. I mean, we have a lot of that currently in process, but we'll be shifting that out to the public side. And then after that, just keep rolling on through the internal stuff. I know room parties just opened. And so there'll be a lot of just hitting some of those other familiar benchmarks, things like that. But obviously, budget is kind of the biggest one, and then like so the hotel blocks are kind of our biggest benchmarks coming up still on in 2023. The next largest ones will be kind of the deadlines for programming and teams deadline for the programming book. We'll see those in early 2024. So we'll start working on staffing levels, things like that, here towards the tail end of the year before we get to the holidays and have the still have our one staff meeting a month, and then after the holidays and crossing over into the new year where we switch to our 2 meetings a month. Pretty much where we're at, and working with departments as they get ready for anything that's on their plate and coordinating with other departments with them, as well as any needs that they have on the hotel side, whether it be exhibit hall logistics or anything like that, and coordinating with each other, programming, main stage, tech, equipment, contracts, things like that.
Would you like to handle the budget proposal at this portion of the meeting?
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and share it on my screen for you, and I will let you go ahead and talk about it.
All right. So, looking at that budget, what we've got there is we've got essentially you can see what was spent in 2023, what departments have asked for this cycle, and then what we feel we are able to approve, or what we're hoping to be able to approve, I should say.
Oh, one quick thing. Ignore the columns on the right-hand side. Those are holdovers from a previous year. Those numbers, the cut, the department-wide cut, just ignore those numbers.
Yeah, they were mathematically populated, and I left them out there in the event we needed to look at implementing something like that, rather than just remove them and have to come back to them. So essentially, that the grand total on there is slightly incorrect. What I'd be looking to ask for is
hold on, I guess it's not showing on YouTube. Yep, it didn't. Bear with me one moment. I can probably switch that over in just a second here. For whatever reason, it's not sharing that portion, so bear with me as I fix OBS here. Because it's not wanting to work right. Is it this one? Nope. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not showing. So go ahead and keep talking. I will keep working on my end to try and make a.
Sure. Okay. So our proposed number would be 440,000 even. We feel that that's gives us the best operating budget for the event to put on for 2024. Some figures to go over would be, so that represents essentially an increase over what we did last year at 350,000. So essentially a 25% increase. So in realizing that it is a significant increase, some of the factors to consider in that is in the last 2 years, our attendance has increased 33% in those last 2 years. So some of these figures are adjusting for to meet some of those attendee needs. Some of the departments, so as you'll notice, there's Dally, Exhibit, IT, logistics, marketing, tabletop, and video, for example, had really nominal increases or stayed the same. Merchandise costs, for example, were down 34% this year, based on an initiative that we purchased last year, the Anime Detour plushie, so that's not reflected on this year. And then some initiatives that we were able to do before the fiscal year ended this year, for example, like our event, we were able to lock into a contract with them for a number of years that will not have an annual cost. So that's not something that will be reflected in our IT costs for a couple of years, but is not going to be on this year's budget as well. Some of the things that might stick out is, for example, like food costs are up at least 20%. The at least being is obviously locking in some of those contracts. We won't know exactly what percentage of those annual increases that there are going to be, even if our equipment needs stay relatively the same. Some of those annual increases are to be expected. Our Volcon costs are going to increase by an expected 13%. Last year, we had some incidences where with almost each meal, we ran out of the meal food sooner than we wanted to. So, with the idea behind our volunteer sweeping to feed staff and volunteers, if we're running out of that food at the meal times, we're falling short of that goal. So that is a necessary increase as well. Staffing costs and that staffing is a new department this year, but staffing costs will currently under this make up 11% of that budget. Even though it's a new department this cycle, some of those costs have been reflected on previous budgets. Last year, for instance, some of the staff housing, things like that. So some of the things to take into consideration for that is with getting staff badges in the last few years, that is a loss of the income that normally would have been brought in by those badges. And so that we have to be at least acknowledge that, but also be accepting of that as for staff. Also along those lines is last year being the first year that, in our 20-year history of being able to provide staff with hotel rooms, and being able to expand on that this year, that is not only a new cost last year, but will be an increased cost this year, with not only an expansion for existing staff, but in being able to retain staff, recruit staff, etc. And again, that's just something that we feel is important to do. The staff that we have had and hope to have, and to bring us in line with something that, frankly, other anime conventions started in the same years as we did, or right thereabouts, been providing for those same number of years. and something that, we feel is important to provide for our staff. So, but it is um, it is a cost that we had not had before. And so again, we had a portion of that last year, and again, it will, um, that particular line item will see an increase this year. And so now staffing costs, um, including housing and additional perks for staff, will now represent 11% of the total operating budget. For comparison, in previous years, when we had a con suite that was for the entire general populace, at one point that was representation of 13% of our total operating budget. So we do feel it's important to continue to provide those things for our staff, food and those things. Um, I just want to make sure, let's see if I left anything else off that I wanted to be sure and point out before I field any questions. Like I said, there's certainly a number of departments that are able to operate on a really close budget, or but needed to see such an increase over the years. We are able to keep our facilities costs down based on our room attrition rate. We don't have a problem with that, so we are able to keep your facilities costs on the lower end of our three contractual options, like I said, based on the number of rooms that we sell. I think again, our guest costs have continued to, if you were to look at and chart our guest costs over the years, those have continued to increase. And I think that they would and should, based on that. That is a draw for our convention, and it does bring attendees to the convention, and that does have a representative cost in terms of being able to bring people in, and the costs associated with bringing in that talent, and the contracts associated with them. So, one other thing to point out is we have not had a dedicated accessibility department. We have had, initiatives before that addressed in some ways accessibility in previous years. I think that we have kind of fallen off on that, and especially in terms of being over 8,100 attendees. So we felt it was important to begin establishing a department for accessibility and inclusivity, so that when our 8,100 attendees do come to Anime Detour, that we are able to have the sorts of things in place to address all of the different needs for our attendees. That's very important. So again, there is some this year's startup costs associated with that, and then going forward, there will continue to be annual costs, that sort of thing. But again, it was something that had not been in place at the level probably necessary as we continued to grow. So yeah, there's increased costs there. But outside of that, that's about the extent of it. In the last 2 years, we were able to bring some costs down considerably within the safety department by switching from more of a law enforcement presence to a different collaborative process with a security team, and found that worked very well. So that was a significant decrease in costs. So it's not things increasing everywhere across the board. That's essentially where we're at. We did find that with Eventney, for instance, in going with that, the flexibility and things that allows us in terms of staff management, potential artist on leadings, mapping management, as well as just the use of Eventney this year in 2023, bringing our walk-up line wait down from 5 hours in 2022 to right around 45 minutes or less in 2023, that alone was of significant value to our reputation, our brand, and our attendee experience. I know that's a lot of information to give you, but I feel like when we're talking about our operating budget for the year and significant changes, and that sort of thing, and the growth period that we're in, like I seen our attendance has increased 33% in the last 2 years, which is great, but a lot of the other costs associated with putting on a convention for, a third more people in the last 2 years. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to field them or provide more explanation for numbers. I'm open to it.
All right, in that case, I will open the floor for anyone who's got questions. And for those of you in chat, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in chat and I will relay them and try and get you some answers as well. So, anyone have at it? Are there any questions from the board? All right, I will give it a minute to see if any questions come in from chat. So, all right, seeing nothing yet, I would like to point out that the board is required to approve this budget, so we would need a motion to do so. So if there are any questions, does anyone have a motion regarding the board, either be it tabling the budget for further discussion, which I don't recommend because it is the start of the fiscal year, so we do need to get this approved or amended in some way. Keep in mind, if we do need to reject it, it would be incumbent upon us to then, well, basically redo the budget. So,
I feel like Corey laid it out very well. So unless anybody has questions, I motion to approve. I'll second that.
all right, moved by Buttons, seconded by Kristen. All those in favor of approving the budget, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, all opposition say nay. Seeing none, it's the opinion of the chair that the motion does carry. Troy, your budget is approved at this time. Congratulations.
Thank you to the board. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting that one. All right, so moving right along, obviously there's no more coordinator updates. Let me go ahead and pull up an email real quick because I do not have the finances up in front of me at this exact second. Let me see if I can find that to read it off from Kim where our finances are at, and then we'll move right along into the ATC budget proposal as well. Far simpler than this one, I assure you. So in the checking account right now, we have $287,575.45. In the education fund, $3,096.75. And in the savings account, $14,499.69. So we do have a little over $300,000 in the bank as it stands. So still doing very financially healthy. So that's all good and well. All right, so for my budget proposal for ATC here, not going to bother trying to share it. It's only 4 line items, and with kind of how annoying it was to try and get it shared the last time, I'm just going to read it off for you all. So I'm proposing for ongoing charity that kind of covers everything we've historically been doing kind of year to year. This is things like Oban Festival, Cherry Blossom Festival, that kind of stuff. $5,000 for the storage locker. $15,000 for our insurance costs, $3,500. And I'm proposing a new item, basically like an executive networking outreach or community engagement fund of $5,000. That'll be for like things for, say, networking with other convention groups we work with, because I know in the past they've brought us out to lunch or dinner, and we currently do not have the ability to easily return that favor at all. So this would just give us some flexibility just to basically at an executive discretion, yeah, we can throw down for that. We can treat other con partners. We can do outreach. Basically, have a discretionary fund, obviously with board oversight and all that for reporting, not necessarily for approval. And I'm proposing $5,000 for that, which gives us a grand total of $28,500 proposed by me at this time. Obviously, though, we can collaboratively work on that, or we can improve it. It's kind of up to all of us here. So I'll go ahead and open up the floor for that discussion.
I think that sounds super reasonable. Just based off my experience working with other boards, I do think it was a little strange that we didn't have some sort of a discretionary fund for that type of stuff. So I think it's good for us to have that available in case a need arises, or even in a situation of perhaps we decide, you know, we want to send somebody to another event in our stead where they could learn things that they could bring back to ATC as an organization.
Yep, and this fund would expressly allow for us to do things like that for things that, say, Anime Detour as an event is not necessarily touching on. ATC could still step in and kind of fill that gap should there be like an organizational need to do so.
That way we don't have to pull from the Anime Detour funds to do that kind of stuff.
Correct. So is there any discussion? Otherwise, this would also need to be a approval from the board as well. So is there any sort of motion on the table regarding the proposed ATC budget?
I personally would motion to accept it.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, moved and approved by Kristen, seconded by Allie, to approve a $28,500 operational budget for ATC for the year. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Right. It is the opinion of the chair that the motion does pass and the budgets for the calendar year or the financial year 2024 are all approved. As far as ongoing board projects go, everything that we've talked about is still ongoing. Nothing much to report at this time. But we expect more on that next month, since obviously the past month's been dedicated to getting all these budgets done and taken care of, since that's a fairly critical and arguably one of the most critical points and jobs that we have as a body here. So I will go ahead and open it up to the floor at this time. Should there be any discussion, questions, board topics anyone would like to bring up at this time? So does anyone have anything they would like to bring up to the All right, seeing nothing. If there's nothing else to discuss, I will entertain a motion to adjourn should one present itself. So,
I have a question, but
Shoot.
I feel like it's more of a closed session type thing.
Okay, it's at your discretion. If that's what you wish, you could always email it to the board email, and we can discuss it and figure out how to handle it going forward if it does not need to be discussed in open session.
Mostly, it's a question in regards to the subpoena thing, so I can just message you.
Yep. Obviously, due to the nature of the subpoena, I did kind of gloss over the details about that one. Other than just to say I did comply with a court order. I was commanded to appear, like it was a motion, like I was compelled to appear at a court. When I presented the records, I did get it in writing that I'm no longer compelled to appear in person. The attorney that sent that over has released us from that. So.
Well, I'm also curious if it was the person that I had told to reach out, or if it's a different situation completely. So I'll message you.
Yep, we can do that.
And I had forwarded them to the board, but I don't know if they actually did. So I was just
understood. Obviously, I'll share all those details with the board as a whole. But due to the nature, it's legal communication. I will not be openly divulging the details in public.
Right.
It's just as a matter of policy, and I think it's just in bad taste to just blast legal stuff out to everywhere. So, are there any other questions? Any other questions, or is there a motion to adjourn?
There's no questions, I will motion to adjourn.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Buttons, seconded by Lori and Allie. All those in favor of adjournment at this time, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned at 6:58 p.m. I will see you all back here second Tuesday of next month, same time, 6:30 p.m. I'll see you all there. Should anyone in chat have any questions? I have been watching it, but I haven't been seeing anything come in, so I do just hope it's been working. Feel free to email the board if you have any questions for us. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, I will talk to you all later.